Welcome to the beautiful city of Paris for the 73rd International Astronautical Congress, which brings together the entire global space community. It includes the burgeoning global ecosystem of startups, entrepreneurs, laboratories, research scientists, and manufacturers that could get involved in space activities or even benefit from them. IAF Congress TV starts right now. Hello and welcome to the first episode of the IAF Congress TV, where we'll be highlighting all the latest at this year's International Astronautical Congress. We'll have a lot to get through today, from the opening ceremony and the opening of the exciting exhibit hall, as well as deep dives into organizations at the forefront of space exploration and technology. But let's start with our exclusive interview with the incoming IAF President. We're now joined by Mowry, who is the incoming president of the IAF. Hi Clay, and first of all, congratulations on the new role. Do tell me, what sort of role do you see the IAF playing in the upcoming years for everything related to space?
Well, you know, the IAF is a unique organization. We have 468 members from 75 countries around the world. We really represent the global space industry. The space industry now has much more than just space agencies. We have universities, we have researchers, we have academic organizations and companies that are now actors in space. Space has opened up. We have better access to space now with lower cost launch and smaller, more efficient satellites. And so this has really opened up space to almost everyone. And the IAF plays a unique role in being able to gather all those individuals every year at the IAC conference and really have a great place for us to meet, have a dialogue, and talk about how we're going to take advantage of space.
So what are your goals for the IAF during your presidency?
So I have three main goals for the IAF. The first is sustainability. Sustainability actually has two features. One, in space, to make sure that all of these actors can operate safely in space. But really, the main goal is sustainability here on Earth. So space is key to actually understanding things like climate change, issues that relate to displacement of humans, for war, for famine, for other things that are happening on the planet. So really we need space to understand what's happening here on planet Earth, and we can use space to benefit planet Earth. So that's my first goal. Second goal is investment. Investment is key, and it's not just investment from the private sector, but governments are also investing in space. And so it's really important that we have a forum to talk with investors, to talk with governments, to understand how the investments are working and how they understand the space sector. And the third priority is security. And when I say security, again, I talk about how actors, multi-actors, space agencies, companies, universities, individuals, can operate in space safely and have ability to actually use satellites and use spacecraft in a way that benefits all and doesn't create problems in operations in space.
And what excites you the most about the future of space exploration and the direction everything's going in?
Well, you know, space right now is really opening up. What we see now with a lot of private astronaut missions, private space stations, missions to the lunar surface, it's really, I've been in space for almost 30 years now, and this is the most exciting time we've ever been in. And now we have this lower cost access to space. We see citizen astronauts going to space, and we see a lot of new missions where universities, even secondary schools, are launching CubeSats into space. So it's hugely exciting for people to get involved in space now. It's so inspiring for young people in science, technology, engineering, and math to see what's happening in space and open up. And it's, you know, in fact, we have a workforce challenge to make sure we have enough engineers, scientists, researchers, and people that want to come into the sector. So it's exciting, but in some ways even daunting, because we have to fill the pipeline of people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As the Congress kicks off, we wanted to take a moment to speak to some of you about what excites you the most about this year's IAC. So let's look at what some of you had to say.
I'm just really excited to have the whole space community coming together again and kind of coming out of the past 2 years and getting to see everybody. And it's looking to the future. It's where we want to go for humanity.
Last year in Dubai at the previous IAC, I started meeting other people who are as enthusiastic in space as I am, and figuring out that there are a lot more companies that I thought actually worked on satellites, rockets, and different technologies in space, and just seeing where I could go with my degree and where I could work and maybe just broaden my horizons even more.
Coming here, doing my master's thesis right now, the last phase of my study, I'm mostly excited about meeting all the companies and getting in touch with all those big companies that came here to, ask the question about what career opportunities there are and, get a little better connection to those companies, basically.
I'm presenting a paper for the SETI program, which is a small workshop as part of this, on SETI algorithms and signal processing, but also to see the greater aerospace exhibitions here as well, astronautics, and so that's something I haven't been involved with and just have a child's curiosity about.
I'm super excited to see how such a diverse network of people from all sorts of different fields come together and come up with really unique solutions to not only advance space technology, but also bring that back through spin-offs and benefit life on Earth.
Collaboration is an absolute requirement when it comes to working in space. This year's Heads of Agencies Plenary at the IAC is going to focus on the theme Space for All. Let's look at what was shared.
Heads of Agency panel is a wonderful occasion for people from around the world to hear from leaders of government-funded space agencies on our current plans and our hopes and dreams for the future. We are at our strongest when we collaborate internationally, and I'll give you a couple of examples. The James Webb Space Telescope, which we collaborated on with Europe and the United States. The new Lunar Gateway, for which we're contributing Canadarm3, a robotic arm which will help construct and maintain the Lunar Space Station when it's not crewed by humans. So this allows us to dream and make those dreams come true together. I hope the attendees take away from the plenary this year that we are encouraging the safe and sustainable exploration of space together as humanity. We're returning to the moon to live, work, and stay, and eventually travel to Mars. Space for all means that it's diverse, inclusive, that we're increasing access to space for humanity. Canada welcomes the world to our amazing industrial capabilities, our amazing scientists, and we look forward to continuing our collaboration with the global space community.
In each episode, we are going to be highlighting organizations that are at the forefront of space exploration and technology. Today, we'll start with Noosphere Ventures. One of their space portfolio companies, Firefly Aerospace, is a leading provider of launch vehicles and in-space services. Let's take a look at how they are poised to be one of the great success stories of the new space race.
Noosphere is a global investment fund, and we believe that we are one of the most prominent and active investors in space technology. Noosphere is the primary investor in Firefly Aerospace. To date, we've invested a little over $95 million in Firefly. Through its various space investments, Noosphere saw a strong market need for a small and medium launch provider. Having looked broadly at the market, we determined that Firefly Aerospace had the right team, the right technology, and fundamentally the right payload class to deliver on the market needs.
So, I mean, if you see on our logotype called Noosphere, right? Noosphere actually been invented by Vernadsky. It's Ukrainian scientist who lived 120 years ago in the Ukraine, who believes that it's like geosphere, biosphere, so it's like different spheres around the Earth. And the top one is Noosphere. Nous, or N-O-U-S, or N-O-O-S, depending on Latin or Greek language, it means knowledge. So it's knowledge about basically, knowledge as an envelope exists around the Earth. That's how we all get connected. That's how passions get together, how brains get together to solve out the problem of the Earth.
So we're still in development phase at Firefly. We remain on track to launch in February 2020. And so the majority of our technical progresses have been leading and building up to this. We've completed full qualification of our upper stage, and beginning within the next couple of weeks, we're going to be working on full qualification for our first stage. From a business perspective, we're incredibly proud of all the partners and customers who've elected to fly with Firefly. Firefly is not just a launch company, we actually operate spacecraft as well. And so, for example, we're looking forward to partnering with NASA in its return to the moon in as early as 2021.
Firefly is a new space company, and what that means is we're trying to dramatically lower the cost of entry to space. We are focusing on the small satellite industry, so we're trying to provide a solution for small to medium launch. We've been working on this for about the last 5 years, and we're just about to launch in the next 6 months, and we'll begin regular service in 2020 for both commercial and government customers.
At Firefly, we're developing a new space company to build and operate a new launch vehicle to dominate the small to medium launch class market, as well as in-space capabilities for small to medium lunar landers and orbital transfer vehicles. To get to space, you really have to develop not only the technical capabilities, but an amazing team to integrate together in a cohesive way to build the launch vehicle, the launch site, the test site, do all the technical regulations, and really build an operational flow. At Firefly, we really want to come out of the gate ready to launch on a steady cadence, building a successful business right from the start.
90% of the Alpha rocket is made out of carbon fiber. There are a lot of different materials we could have chosen to build the airframe out of, but to us, composites seemed like the obvious choice. Carbon fiber has the highest strength to weight ratio, and so when comparing and looking at metallics, yes, they are really strong in 3 different directions, but we don't need strength in all directions. So laying up the carbon fiber for us means that we can put extra strength where we need it, and then we don't have to lay up plies in places where we don't need that strength.
As part of Firefly's 5-year plan to expand into spacecraft, there's an opportunity called NASA CLPS, which is NASA Commercial Lunar Payload Services. And Firefly intends to field a small lunar lander to take cargo to the moon for NASA. Now, we're not starting from scratch. Fortunately, we have a partner in IAI, which is an Israeli company that has demonstrated a lander called Genesis. Firefly is taking that lander and improving it and putting American-built components into it as a stepping stone for us to get into building spacecraft.
The lunar lander is a great addition to Firefly. We started off as a launch vehicle company, and the lunar lander really expands our scope and leverages what we do well, but also aligns us with a teammate that's already done this before. So we're the one competitor out there that is teamed with a company that has gotten all the way to lunar orbit, and so we're going to do it again, but we're going to build it here in the U.S.
Firefly is a new space company, which means we're trying to change the paradigm. It also means we're trying to draw more people into the industry and into space access. Noosphere has a mission that's very parallel to Firefly's mission. They're our primary investor, and in the future, we think that not only building hardware will be a collaboration between us, but also education and STEM will be something that we'll focus on with Noosphere.
I think that most humans have a natural desire to understand the things that they can see around them. You know, and for a lot of us, it's looking up into space, and the way to understand that is for us to get there. So it's really exciting to be working at a company that builds launch vehicles and in-space services, because I get an opportunity to see the power and the ingenuity that goes into a system built by man that can lift off into outer space.
In the near term, the most fundamental challenge that I'm looking forward to overcoming is getting to space. We're on track to be flying in Q1 next year, And I look forward to that day when we're all standing at Vandenberg watching Alpha fly to space. Beyond that, an important transitional element for Firefly next year is the shift from development stage to a rinse and repeat manufacturing phase. And so we're looking to fly 5 missions in total next year and scaling up to at least 10 missions in 2021. And that is going to require a different set of skills and a real maturing of the company, and that is the challenge that we're looking forward to making.
The Khalifa University Space Technology and Innovation Center, also known as Acoustic, was established with the aim of becoming a center of excellence for the space sector in the UAE. Acoustic builds on the current space-related capabilities developed within Khalifa University to support the space industry, as well as to use resources effectively to achieve the greatest impact opportunity for the UAE. Let's take a closer look.
Khalifa University Space Technology and Innovation Center, also known as Acoustic, is established through the support of UAE Space Agency, YASA Communication Company, and Khalifa University. Acoustic is aimed at achieving UAE's long-term vision in space exploration, technology development, and applications. Acoustic is currently undertaking a number of advanced space research projects, including developing a 6U CubeSat technology demonstrator at low Earth orbit, synthetic aperture radar payload for CubeSat, and developing a multi-directional microelectric propulsion system. The integral part of Acoustic is YASA Space Lab, which focus in the design, assembly, integration, and testing of a CubeSat.
A CubeSat is considered a cutting-edge technology. It's a small satellite that can perform and collect information for extensive research on areas where humans cannot reach. In the YASA Space Lab, we have designed and developed 4 CubeSats of different sizes, starting with the smallest 1U CubeSat called MySat-1 that incorporated an experimental battery with a camera. The second one is called Baptsite, which is a 2-unit satellite to test novel attitude control algorithms in space. A 3-unit Mesensat to study the greenhouse gases, and a 3-unit Light 1 CubeSat to detect the terrestrial gamma ray flashes through the thunderstorm activities. And right now, a 6-unit CubeSat is being developed in the lab with a micro-propulsion system that will be its main payload.
So our efforts are aimed at addressing key design challenges in the realization of SAR payloads for CubeSat applications. Specifically, our objective is to design an antenna, a transceiver, a SAR processor, and to integrate all of them within a small form factor. SAR is a uniquely devised technology for all-weather Earth observations and various remote sensing applications, including surveying and tracking. However, the existing space-based SAR systems rely on large and expensive satellites placed at high altitudes. These systems could not be used for Earth observations over large areas and short revisiting times. So to address this challenge, Acoustic has been working on realizing new spaceborne SAR systems to be deployed with constellations of CubeSats in the lower Earth orbit, or LEO. This is in fact aligned with the UAE's Space Agency's program aimed at developing SERB, which is a constellation kind of project.
A microelectric propulsion system is a huge step into controlling CubeSats in orbit, where the CubeSat can change its attitude while collecting data at different locations. And a CubeSat constellation will aid in the process of building a network of a wide range of coverage for research purposes. We also test its receivers here in the ground station to make sure our antennas are working well.
The research projects and the initiatives proposed by Acoustic will contribute to key sectors of the space economy here in UAE. Acoustic will play a critical role in developing extraterrestrial mobility vehicles and advanced space sensor technologies.
Here in Khalifa University, we're working on various sensing technologies. One of these technologies is radiation detection that's considered a great asset for space exploration. Memristor is an emerging memory technology. Memristor device can provide sensing, memory, and computation in the same cell, which paves the way toward developing smart sensors that can provide more dimensions of information based on the computation feature. Our target is to develop efficient, ultra-low power graphene-based memristor devices and then to be flight tested, taking the advantage of UAE space effort so that it can be used in the future as a standard space sensor according to its unique features.
In my PhD, I'm working on space robotics field. My work is about characterizing the soil in space rover using neomorphic vision sensor to identify the loose soil. We have also the potentiometer to measure the sinkage, and the last sensor is the force torque sensor to measure the normal load and the drawbar pull force. Also, I'm working with the team to develop a new rover design which has an adaptive locomotion system. This rover will be able to traverse different types of terrains and different inclinations due to the moving legs in the design. Machine learning-based control system is used to position the legs based on the terrain conditions. These techniques that we are working on now can be used later for the UAE future space projects.
Acoustic is a great place for students to learn, grow, and excel because they will not only gain hands-on experience by utilizing the state-of-the-art facilities, but have the unique opportunity to work on a space mission.
If I had to ultimately hone in on one thing, it would be that it provides hand-on based exposure for students about space science and technology.
The professors here are providing the support that we need. There are many experts with different backgrounds, and I'm planning to apply my knowledge during my PhD projects in the UAE future space missions.
The center greatly contributes toward achieving Abu Dhabi vision of knowledge-based economy by educating students on state-of-the-art technologies that will be the main pillars for the future UAE economy.
It is extremely exciting to work in this field because there is a mystery in space exploration and there is a lot more that we can find out.
It is critical that Acoustic continue to engage and attract collaborations to create innovative ideas to address emerging technical challenges. Therefore, together we make future sustainable space exploration a reality.
Axiom Space, the premier provider of human spaceflight services and development of human-rated space infrastructure, is guided by the vision of a thriving home in space that benefits every human everywhere.
I started Axiom with the intent of building a human presence in space. We saw an opportunity to build a commercial space station, given where NASA and the partnership were headed to in the future. It made it very clear they were not building the next low Earth orbit platform, that they were going to seed that to commercial, but more importantly, they said, we have a lot of need for a platform in low Earth orbit. So when this opportunity came up and nobody was raising their hand to say, we'll do it, a big push for me was, hey, has to happen for us to be successful. This is where the torch has to be picked up. So Dr. Cam Ghaffarian, the co-founder of Axiom Space, and I got together and decided we would go build that commercial space station. We worked closely with NASA to get them to allocate opportunities to go to the ISS. They've allocated 2 so far, both of which we've been allowed to serve. So AX1 was the first. AX2 coming up next year is the second one.
The purpose of the AX1 mission was to be our first test of our role coordinating with NASA on the International Space Station. It's a good way for us to test all our ground procedures and our interfaces with Houston's mission control and all the other mission controls around the world and integrate our mission into theirs. But it is primarily for us to be a precursor mission to get our processes and procedures for communicating with the crew, how we want to timeline things for the activities of the day. So it's really an important precursor that we're building up to so that by 2024, when we have our first module up there, we will be able to be ready to get rolling immediately.
We're building a space station that will house more people than the International Space Station. When we've got our first couple, 3 modules up, will be able to support 8 people. The ISS can support 7. So it became very clear that we should practice together with the smaller contingent of crew over time so that when our station arrived and we started having long duration passengers on board, that we could work seamlessly with NASA. So that was the original genesis of these flights, the first of which was AX-1. Over time, we became kind of clear that there's a market for it as well.
It's really exciting for me to be a part of these precursor missions leading up to what I hope will be a very exciting change in the way low Earth orbit is viewed, not just as governments going into space, but as commercial entities going into space. As commander on Axiom 2 mission, we will be flying up the second Axiom flight to the International Space Station. I've flown in space 3 times for 665 days. And I still want to go back. I look forward to the expansion of space and being a part of that process of change.
Axiom, through what we're doing with the Axiom station and the rest of the infrastructure that we hope to build, are really looking at taking commercial space to a global audience and a global customer base. We're really building a platform that is not only sustainable but scalable as we bring more and more of the partners of the world into the space arena. And it's really about bringing the number of partners into space to a greater number so that we have more countries and more players in this exploration effort. But it's also about diversifying the economies and things that we can do in space as well. And that requires players from all countries.
That's a big focus for us, bringing more countries into orbit, not just to utilize our platform in low Earth orbit, but to help them grow as a nation technically, advance their capabilities so they can participate with the broader community of nations that explores beyond low Earth orbit. But it's not about space companies. It really is about all the other companies that will be able to utilize the microgravity environment to build a better product to enhance our lives here on Earth. Microgravity allows us to create much stronger alloys, faster fibers. It allows us to create pharmaceutical products that can't be created on the ground in a gravity environment. These are not things that space companies do. These are things that automobile companies and plane companies and pharmaceutical companies, and you just list it, the list can go on and on of products that can benefit from this.
Most of a commercial space market traditionally defined is one around satellite and satellite services, but what we're really talking about is bringing new markets to bear that are enabled by human spaceflight. And so what we do is really creating those first opportunities for some of these new economies to emerge. I entered this career and this job hopeful on the idea of putting hundreds, if not thousands, of humans in space, and I really think we're on the cusp of that time frame. But I think we do that on the backbone of a permanent economy that creates that justification for people living and working in space. Because without that, it just becomes too expensive to fly. But when you can create the economic activity that drives the need for humans in space, you create the cities in space of the future that really justify people being there.
I think Axiom's primary objective is to promote making space accessible, whether that's to industries and countries that haven't had access before, and individual. Commercializing low Earth orbit is going to make space much more accessible for everyone. And I think being a part of that is really exciting and why I chose to join Axiom in this big endeavor.
In 2017 saw the announcement of the Australian Space Agency here at the International Astronautical Congress. Since then, it's grown leaps and bounds along with a rapid growth in the space sector in Australia. In the first of 3 films about the work of the agency, let's take a look at this newfound momentum in Australian space.
Australia has a proud and long history in space. We've been at the centre of international deep exploration for more than half a century, working with our partners at NASA and the European Space Agency. We were there when humans landed on the moon for the first time, with the dishes out at Honeysuckle Creek. Our heritage also extends to be one of the first nations that ever launched a satellite into space from our own territory. But what is not known is Australia is home to the world's oldest astronomers, and they've used the stars and constellations above Australia to dictate seasonal activities for tens of thousands of years. Australia is an exciting place to work in space today because we're seeing a renaissance in new companies, new technologies being developed to really ensure we use space technologies to improve the lives of all Australians. Space activity in Australia has actually continued since those early days of the space age. We've used space technologies for what we call remote sensing or Earth observation to support our primary industries. We've continued to support deep space exploration missions. However, if you fast forward to today, it's very clear that every aspect of modern life relies on space technology. And as a result, the Australian government has really pivoted to understand, no, we need to develop some of these capabilities here for our citizens, and so we can be an indispensable partner internationally. And it was actually at the International Astronautical Congress in Adelaide where Australia announced to the world to rapturous applause that we were forming an Australian space agency. Our purpose at the Australian Space Agency is to grow a thriving, globally respected and responsible space sector here in Australia. One that lifts the broader economy, inspires and importantly improves the lives of all Australians. Australia's space sector is starting to grow very rapidly. What I like to say is we're moving from a startup phase in this sort of new space era to a scale-up phase. We're seeing that in more satellites, Australian satellites being launched into space. We're seeing space companies of all sizes hiring talent. We're seeing spaceports being developed around the nation. We have an amazing geography that allows us to launch rockets into space safely, big open ranges. We can access various types of orbits. But our geography also gives us a really unique view of the sky. We have a responsible regulatory framework and we're a trusted partner, trusted to protect sensitive technologies. We have amazing talent, and what's really exciting for me is a space career is entirely possible in Australia today. Often we think of astronauts and rocket scientists, but the reality is we need engineers, we need scientists, we need policy advocates, we need space lawyers, all the things that can really drive a thriving space ecosystem here in Australia. Every day the agency is working hard to accelerate the growth of our space sector. In consultation with industry, the Australian Space Agency is developing technical roadmaps to set the 10-year aspirational vision and ambition for our nation in space, a guide for the industry on where the market opportunities lie and where they can see the most growth whilst supporting some of the greatest needs of our nation. Since publishing our Communication and Associated Technologies roadmap in 2020, we've seen well over $100 million invested in the pathways. We are now working on the National Plan for Space, developing a cohesive national space strategy. One of our key programs is what we call Moon to Mars. So our Moon to Mars program is seeing us continuing our long-standing partnership with the US as they look to go to the moon and beyond. Our International Space Investment Initiative has seen Australian organisations collaborate with international space agencies and international space companies on a variety of technologies, from next-generation spacesuits to advanced small satellites. In collaboration with the UK Space Agency and Austrade, we are unlocking new trade partnerships between Australia and the UK as part of the UK-Australia Space Brief Framework. Our historic National Space Program for Earth Observation will see us collaborate with partners in the US on Earth observation science, building satellites that are going to allow us to calibrate this amazing data set, both historically and into the future, that allows us to understand our planet. We want to move from a nation that traditionally has just consumed Earth observation data to contribute it to the global community, making us an indispensable partner. We want to be makers, not just takers. It's clear we're seeing a trajectory where we are building more sophisticated satellites in Australia. We are working how to analyse and use space data to improve the lives of all Australians and address some of our greatest challenges. And we're working on programs that really inspire our youth of our nation to get involved in science and technology and math. That not only benefits the space sector, but benefits all sectors.
Well, that's it for our first episode of IAF Congress TV. But remember that we'll be back each day of the meeting with a new episode highlighting all that you need to know from the 2022 IAC. We'll see you tomorrow.